of about him saying that ultimately United States moved because they were afraid Iran would strike first because Israel was about to strike, right? This was not just a off-the-cuff remark he made. It's the same logic that he used with the Gang of Eight last week when arguing about, the possibility of a war and why it might be necessary. The Democrats at the time in the Gang of Eight, as we reported, saw this as circular logic, and Rubio repeated it yesterday, and as you say, drew a lot of criticism for it.
Anna Applebaum, let me ask you, I think you were also here at the end of last week, and we talked about how Europe has changed because of the political vacuum America created in Ukraine and beyond Trump's, to put it generously, indifference toward NATO. What is the response from our allies about America's Secretary of State essentially saying we are at war because we're responding to what Israel was about to do?
So alongside not explaining to Americans what the war would be about, the U.S. also didn't explain to allies. I think it did warn some allies, so people were aware that there might be something happening in the Middle East last weekend. But there was no effort to build support for the American position. There was no effort to get the European countries who have actually had a lot of interaction with Iran and who know Iran well and who have troops or military.
I'm going to say this. You didn't have to be a war expert to be able to figure out that Mr. Putin, towards them doing exercises that they claimed, was involved in more than just exercises in bringing that many artillery up to the Ukrainian border. They was telling everybody, oh, this is just tactical movements. It's just tactical movements. But once more, my brother and I knew exactly what was going on because of what had previously went on before. The same way with right now. If you ain't got enough sense to see where we bring 2 destroyers and all that equipment, all them men and women over there, we're just not going over there to play tic-tac-toe with somebody. The answer should be obvious if you got common sense in seeing a buildup like that. But now whenever you got a society that don't have common sense, they're going to question, well, you didn't warn nobody. You didn't warn nobody. Well, yeah, they did. They told everybody like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time that they was having problems with them people over there. What it is, that the media wants you to say and tell step for step in what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And the thing about good leadership, if you was to do that, then you'd give the enemy advantage in your enemy knowing just exactly what you was going to do and when you was going to do it. Stupid.
We had in mind the dead. So, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports.
Your thoughts about where we are as a military and where the conversation with the country stands right now as being led by Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, this is obviously turning, I think, into a major disaster. But the point that he was making about taking out senior leaders, I mean, I remember very vividly my time in Iraq. You remember the decks of cards that we had with all the bad guys listed, from the ace of spades to the 2 of clubs, whatever. And how every night we were trying to take out bad guys, senior leaders in the Iraqi military, Al-Qaeda and the like. And I remember the impact on the ground was pretty much negligible, that every time that they killed a bad guy, another one would jump up. These are not stupid people. They've known that this attack was coming for quite some time. We had an 86-year-old Khomeini that was leading this country who had cancer, and he knew that his days were numbered. He had at least 4 levels, I believe, appointed of the succession plan. So, to think that these people are going to be taken away, or we're going to execute regime change merely by killing off the top 40 or 50 senior leaders in the IRGC. I mean, that's pretty rich to go to that to make that kind of an argument. These people are smart. They are dug in. They're well equipped, and they're going to hold out for quite some time, despite the fact that they've lost a lot of senior leaders. The military has done a superb job. I'm very, very proud of that. But Donald Trump is taking advantage of their incredible competence and their ability to get the job done, because they've been taught to respond, yes, sir, when a civilian leader gives a command. And they've done it very, very well. But he's been taking, what he has essentially done is he's turned America's military into Trump's militia to execute his plan and his, to feed his ego, make him look like the tough guy. This is not going well. It's only going to get worse, and we're only 4 days into this.
Trump's latest public communication about where he will use the military is to deploy the Navy to lead ships through the Straits of Hormuz. What risk does that present to the men and women of the Navy?
Well, a tremendous risk, obviously. I mean, if they're going to go into the Persian Gulf, a very small area, in the 21-mile Strait of Hormuz, as we pointed out earlier, I mean, they put themselves at tremendous risk. There are landmines, or there are mines in the sea that have been placed out there, and of course they do have a Navy. Donald Trump claims that we've degraded quite a bit of it. But there's lots of threats that the Navy will definitely encounter in trying to support the movement of oil through the Strait of Hormuz.
Let me come back to what Marco Rubio has put before the Congress and the country. This public narrative that we went to respond to what would be the response from Iran, knowing that Israel was going to go. It presupposes that we had no sway or no influence over what Israel would do, which, if that is the sworn testimony of Secretary of State, that's shocking in and of itself. But this is where the most dramatic rupture is within Trump's movement since I've known you, since I've laid eyes on you, since you've been having these conversations. And this is a tweet from right-wing influencer, the Daily Wire host, Matt Walsh. Quote, "So he is flat out telling us we are in a war with Iran because Israel forced our hand. This is basically the worst possible thing he could have said."
Yeah, that's an important point to consider, because one of the things that Rubio did is that there was a bunch of people that were tepid, but they were still saying, look, I'm not sure I'm here, but they're not full-throated attacking Trump or the Trump administration, like Walsh. When he said that, he basically kicked a hornet's nest, because this has been a major fault line in the larger MAGA coalition for a while. That big dust-up back in October between Nick Fuentes and the Heritage Foundation that created that pylon where all these right-wingers then started picking a side, where J.D. Vance had to essentially say, no, we're going to let the Groypers in, because he couldn't say no, we're not going to let them out. It was all because of this. How much power and influence do we actually want Israel to have over our politics? And then separate from that, how much tolerance are we going to have for the mere perception of that narrative threat? And what Rubio said is he confirmed for a large part of the MAGA coalition something that they've been saying for a while. The Alex Joneses of the world, the Nick Fuenteses, the Matt Walshes.
Look, sometimes in making decisions like this, it's a damned if you do and it's a damned if you don't scenario. Okay? And at best, at the end of the day, that anybody can do is weigh out the risks and say, okay, is it more of a risk over here towards us not doing this, or is it going to be more of a risk towards us doing this? You're basically having to choose between the lesser of the two evils whenever your back's against the wall like this, because we know that these people was not going to cooperate when it comes to nuclear armament pertaining to enrichment to make nuclear bombs with. Are we going to wait until they actually make a bomb and use it on somebody and kill, let's say, 2 or 3 million people? Because the population over there today is probably 4 times as thick as what it was over in Germany whenever the atomic bombs went off. You're looking at total devastation. Is the media and the world ready to see something like that? I don't think so. It's bad enough to watch regular bombs do the damage that they do, much less see a nuclear bomb, an intermittent missile do damage like that. You have to play a leader role in itemizing the risk. Once it weighs out on this side, more so than it does that side, you make a choice. And obviously for the past, 47 years, the choices that we've been making has been the wrong choices because we still ain't got them to reform. We still ain't got them to listen. We still ain't got them to back off. And if people can't understand that, obviously they don't understand leadership type positions. And that's probably the reason why they ain't leaders themselves. And it don't matter if you're a leader in a church. It don't matter if you're a leader in a ball team. It don't matter if you're a leader in a soccer game with a bunch of girls in it. It doesn't matter if you're leading in a military complex. You got to weigh out the risks. And a lot of times in a leader type position, you got to choose between the lesser of the two evils because you reach a point that damned if you do and damned if you don't. Damned if my team wins and damned if they don't play to win. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, there's all kinds of embarkments that can follow pursuit on a decision like this.
Circuitous path. Is he going to protect the protesters? Is he going to knock out the nuclear program throughout or cut a deal, right? Throughout, behind the scenes, there was this push increasingly by Netanyahu that led to what we now see, which is a joint U.S.-Israeli military operation. And Trump was not getting any advice of his own advisors against doing this, but he was getting strong advice from Netanyahu that he needed to be part of that. So Netanyahu kind of filled the vacuum there. And the one other thing that's important to say
is
that Trump came off the operation in Venezuela in early January quite confident about how quick and easy U.S. military force can be. And I think got into the idea that, well, maybe something as clean as Venezuela can be done in Iran. So it's these combination of forces that kind of led us to where we are right now.
It's important
how many times have you been taught in school, elementary school, pretending to shooting a bear and leaving the bear wounded, that if you leave the bear wounded, then that leaves a chance for the bear to always turn around and come back at you? And it don't matter if it's a bear, don't matter if it's a raccoon, don't matter if it's a deer, don't matter if it's a squirrel, don't matter what it is. A badger, whatever. How many times have we been taught that? Obviously, what they done 6 months ago in desecrating those nuclear sites did not get the hint across. And because of it, they had to go back and lick their calf over again. Like my grandpa used to tell us boys when we'd sit out there and look at a mama cow licking its baby to give it a bath, and then an hour or two later he was out there licking it again. It's like, gee, Grandpa, you gonna lick all the hair off the calf? He said, nope. She looked at that calf, she inspected that calf, and that calf was not as clean as what she thought it was originally, and because of it, she had to re-lick her calf over again. Now, I don't know if it was exactly said that way, but the terminology was the same, pertaining to sometimes you got to go back and re-lick your calf over again. Sometimes, if first you don't succeed, try again, is what we've been taught in elementary school, going to education courses around here. Now, I don't know what they teach up in New York. I don't know what they teach in Minnesota. I don't know what they teach in California. I don't know what they teach in Florida or maybe down in Texas. But I'm just telling you what they've taught us here in the Bible Belt, farming, industry side of life. That's what they've taught us. Never shoot a bear unless you intend to kill it, number one. Number two, sometimes, if you don't first succeed, try again. Based upon, you got to weigh out your risks.
Is we need far fewer. Second is we need these programs that are going to get people assimilated. But listen, to your point, there may just be certain groups of people who are not really suited culturally, at least the adults, to come in and become Americans, again, at least without a lot of that support to try to show them, here's how things operate here.
At a minimum, not suited to be Americans culturally.
Now, you have to ask yourself a question, which is this. Whenever Donald Trump done what he done 6 months ago in ordering those strikes, I don't think nobody, absolutely nobody that I know of, objected to that movement. It was cut and dry, it was in and out, and it was over with. It was over with. Well, how come society looks at that from that perspective, but they don't look at this towards the same perspective and basically getting enriched uranium and doing the same thing? And it's not just a risk to Israel, because if they ever take out Israel, with it being a Bible Belt predominant spiritual entity over in the Middle East on the form of a righteous form, not a ungodly form, not a radical Islamic form, but in a Christian form, I guarantee you the rest of society, regardless whether they was Christian societies or non-Christian societies, would all follow pursuit. In other words, it'd be like a set of dominoes. And I don't know if anybody's ever looked at that. I ain't never heard nobody say that. I ain't never heard nobody use an analogy to that extent. But I'm telling you right now, if they take out Israel right now, destroy Israel, it's just a matter of time before they're going to be coming over our horizon and every other Christian society's horizon. So you better deal with this right now. You better nip it in the bud. And if you don't nip it in the bud, in which it should have been nipped in the bud going back 35, 40 years ago, especially after we got hit with 9/11, we still ain't got the true perpetrators that masterminded 9/11 as far as I'm concerned. But now I'm not playing this political game, so let me just stand in the corner over here to be seen and not heard, okay? Because obviously everybody must think that I'm out in left field to begin with, because I don't have supporters. I don't have people knocking on my door saying, Juby, 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 we stand with you, man. We agree with you 100%. We're for peace, Juby. Nobody in Northwest Tennessee has come knocking on my door. Haven't called me, haven't written me a letter, hadn't sent me an email, hadn't even got a smokestack message. But yet now I get all these other movements towards, oh, GB's this, oh, GB's that, oh, GB's this, oh, GB's that. And the whole time, GB's only been telling his side of the story. And as I'm telling my side of the story, sometimes I rub in with different groups, regardless whether it's church groups, regardless whether it's political groups, regardless whether it's Tennessee groups, regardless whether it's Kentucky groups, regardless whether it's Oklahoma groups. Sometimes I rub shoulders with different groups. And because of it, they have said they have told their side of the story, which individually people can believe them over me, or they can believe me over them. This didn't start my life yesterday, or the day before yesterday, or last year, or even 10 years ago. This stuff's been going on in my life now, going on 40 plus years. Ever since 1983, whenever I made a telephone call to the White House about the Antichrist. My life has been totally upside down. I have been targeted. People didn't want me to speak out. They wanted to silence me. They didn't want me to have any type of influence in society. So they wanted to shun me. They wanted to basically, if we can't achieve our objective one way, let's try to achieve our objective another way. And the last time, whenever I come back to Northwest Tennessee in 2014, they tried to basically turn the tables and making it look like my brother and I was stalkers, though they only put my name on the warrant, pretending to me having to confess to a crime that I never committed. And the whole time, me and my brother was just concerned about 3 little children that was being messed up by messed up parents. And it wasn't so much in the children misbehaving, because what we seen out of the children was just being children. I think one of them was like 6 or 7. Another one was maybe 5, and the other one maybe 2, right at 2 or something like that. Maybe not even 2 years old. I mean, just little kids. But yet, no, we would watch activities going on across the road over here that was very, very inappropriate. We would watch ambulances pull up and pick the lady up, and then next thing you know, we heard well, she said that she fell, and that's what caused the injury to her ribs, or this or that. You know what I'm saying? So it was just endless, and it was the main perpetrator was the person that was renting the property, the owner, that was coming around here badgering us about every 7-8 times a day. If he wasn't badgering David, he was badgering me. If he wasn't tormenting my life, he was tormenting my brother's life again and again and again and again. Now you tell me what they was trying to do the last time. They was trying to provoke us. David and I sat down. We discussed this. We go, Juby. He goes, Juby, we're in a bad position here, aren't we? I said, yeah, we are. We're in a position of damned if we do and damned if we don't. And it wouldn't have mattered if we'd have found the perpetrator on our property, and we would have laid into him the same way prior to that, about 4 or 5 years. He basically laid into my brother, and not only did they lay in on him and his wife and his daughter, but then they picked up the gun that fell out of my brother's pocket, and then decided to point it at his head and try to discharge the firearm and kill him. And if the gun didn't have a safety feature on it, to the degree that the clip fell out of the gun, I think it was a Glock, to the point that even though there's a bullet in the chamber, it still won't activate if it didn't have that type of safety feature on it. Instead of me going to my daddy's funeral, well, actually, I went to my older brother's funeral first. Then I went to my daddy's funeral. But if that gun wouldn't had that safety feature on it, I would have went to 3 funerals within a year, within 12 months' time. Right here in Northwest Tennessee. Every event happened right here at either 430 Beach Grove Road or 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee. But yet now, we was the bad guys? No, we was not the bad guys. Juby come back to the area that he was raised up in all his life. Been here ever since 1967. Come down here when I was about 6 years old. Juby thought that he had confidence in the community. Juby didn't realize that all this time they'd been planting seeds of contentment and seeds of hatred and seeds of this and seeds of that, to the degree that basically the majority of people that know what was going on down here sat idly by and either let it happen or was being entertained because it was happening. And that includes judges, probation officers, sheriffs, DA officers, and the whole 9 yards up there in Dresden, Tennessee, that sat idly by and did not control the situation down here. And come to find out, the children got taken away from the mother about 3 or 4 years later anyways. Because why? Because she was unfit. She was unfit to raise the children, which helps to verify my case. The fact is that my brother and I was concerned about them 3 little children. We made a telephone call to Nashville, Tennessee, to the Child Abuse Center. We made another telephone call to the Weakley County Children Abuse Center, because we was suggested or recommended to call the Dresden, keeping it on a local level. So that's what we done. After we called Nashville, Tennessee, which is the capital of our great state, we turned around and took their advice, and we called the Weakley County Social Services up there, just past E.W. James on the left-hand side, like going towards McKenzie. Just barely, it's still in the city limits of Dresden. Off the main highway there. People's, as far as I'm concerned, they're bewildered. They don't know what's going on. They have no idea. And of course, if you put all this stuff together, pretending all these natural catastrophes, all these man-made catastrophes, I'm telling you right now, we're heading down a road that if you think hard times is here, you ain't seen hard times yet. You continue on the trajectory that we're on, and it's going to get so bad that basically they'll be having to form soup lines like they did back during World War II, where they had to ration gas, ration tires, ration food, ration this, ration that, because everything will be going to the war. Now, if that's what the people desire in this great nation called America, then continue to do what you've been doing, which is doing nothing, and that's exactly what you're going to get, to the point that the government will clamp down, the federal government will clamp down on everybody, and it won't be but first personnel, police officers, people like ambulances and fire stations, and our military, and probably the airports that will be deemed as first class, and the rest of us will be second and third, maybe even fourth class. Yep. If you're waiting for those kind of hard times to come, continue to keep waiting, because that's the trajectory that we're on.
Yes, escalation is what is ahead, as opposed to a Maduro-style one and done kind of operation. Mark Mazzetti, does any of your reporting suggest that this is what was considered by any sort of formal NSC process?
Oh, I'm not sure there was much of an NSC process. It was very opaque to us that the decision making had actually any kind of process. Certainly, President Trump was briefed on military options, but I mean, even this.
Once more, whenever it's reached a point that you can't trust a great deal of personnel in your own group, and it don't matter if it's media personnel, it don't matter if it's CIA personnel, it don't matter if it's Pentagon personnel, it don't matter if it's Ling, Virginia personnel, or FBI personnel. Whenever it reaches the point that you can no longer trust certain people in these positions, that's basically going to squeal, or they're going to let the cat out of the bag too early, you just don't say nothing to nobody. And that's where we're at, which I think is a good play. If you can't trust everybody, then don't trust nobody. In other words, get the bull by the horns and do what needs to be done. And if they question you about it, well then tell them that you'll give an answer whenever it's appropriate to give the answer. But as of right now, there's other matters that need to be dealt with. I realize that the public can be very, very demanding. And I realize that the media can be very, very influential whenever it comes to basically manipulating the truth. I've seen the truth manipulated with the media again and again and again, and it didn't matter in what particular group it was, whether or not they was on the Democrat side or the Republican side or whatever side, because you can turn it to one channel and you get one opinion, you turn it to another channel, you get another opinion, you turn it to another channel and you get their opinion. And then you go to national news overseas and then you get their opinion. And sometimes you'll have 5 or 6 different opinions and every one of them will be different from the original opinion. Now you tell me that's right. Oh, it's confusion's what it is.
Felt explosions. Next.
It's total confusion is what it is. And I think people like Putin, I think the leader in China, I think other leaders that are in great authority, I think that they can see this too. This is just my opinion now. This is my opinion about what's going on. You can take it for what it's worth.
Always. And we'll talk again soon. And Colin McShane, if you haven't heard, is headed to the Middle East. He'll have coverage of the military action in Iran beginning tomorrow, right here on News Nation Live. He's traveling right now. We'll get to him tomorrow. Iran retaliating against its neighbors with missiles and drones targeting civilian areas and American outposts. Now, how that could change the Middle East, we're going to talk about it, and the Gulf states against Iran.
I'm going to tell you how it can change things. They're finally waking up and seeing how dirty and low down that the Iranians really are, that don't really care about their neighbors. this whole time, if they thought some sort of a brotherhood deal, that for surely to God, if they get into a clash with Israel, if they get into a clash with America, for surely to God, they won't turn on us too. Well, now that's what they're seeing. That's exactly what they're seeing. They're seeing how low down that regime really is, to the degree that they don't care about their brotherhood. They don't care about their neighbors. It don't matter if it's backyard, front yard, side yard. It don't matter. So this is really a good thing, and an eye-opener in everybody else around Iran in seeing just exactly how dirty and corrupted and how evil that their so-called brothers in brotherhood are. Anytime you're dealing with people that want to harm people for no legitimate reason, you're dealing with evil. We ordinarily are always on the defense, but sometimes in order to put things in the right equation towards the defense, sometimes you got to play a little offense. You know, whenever you're watching a football game or any kind of a sport game, usually there's the defense and then there's the offense. You got the offense that's going against their defense, and then whenever their defense is standing up, now you got our offense that's going up against their defense. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But you're not supposed to attack your own people in your own backyard. Not like the way they're doing. And basically, they're cutting off their own nose to despite their faces. And I'm kind of glad that Iran is basically showing their true colors this way, because all along, every American that knows anything about this evil regime knows how worthless and how sorry and how low down that these people are.
We go to war unless there's a clearly defined objective. It's pretty clear, it's pretty simple, and I think that means that we're not going to get into the problems that we've had with Iraq and Afghanistan.
So he says that the objective has been defined. We are not going to get into the problems that we have had with Iraq and Afghanistan. The problem with that is George W. Bush didn't want to get into the problems that we got into in Iraq and Afghanistan.
But even George W. Bush felt compelled to come before the American people and to try to explain, whether or not you agree with it or not, to give the American people that benefit and that respect of the voters and the citizens. This is a president who's acting like he's not responsible to the voters and the citizens, who acts like he can do whatever he wants and just, kind of give his explanation through indirection. Telephone interviews for reporters, an offhanded comment at an event for another event, or Marco.
Once more, what's made this president this way? It's because of trust. I explained it a while ago. It's trust. Whenever you get to the point you can't trust your own party, well, you start working in secrecy.
Really important piece of this. So part of what has made Donald Trump such a dominant figure in our politics for the last decade is one of those things he said way back in 2016 when he was first running, which is that he could walk down Fifth Avenue, shoot someone, and his supporters would still be with him. So it really begs the question, where are his strongest supporters on this particular action? So let's start with Megyn Kelly, Eric Prince, Tucker Carlson, all in a row, and then we'll take a look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. But let's start with those first three.
Okay.
I've got serious doubts about what we're doing. I support the president. I voted for the president. I campaigned for the president, as you know. But that doesn't mean, and being a conservative or being a Trump supporter or being part of MAGA does not mean you have to accept another Middle East war without questions. And anybody who tells you that can suck it.
I'm not happy about the whole thing. I don't think this was in America's interest.
The public doesn't support it, and it's terrible for the United States.
Tucker Carlson right there. It's terrible for the United States. Now let's watch Marjorie Taylor Greene, who appeared on Megyn Kelly's show to talk about this. Watch.
We're a year in, and we're in another fucking war, and we've got American troops being killed. I think it's time for America to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the fuck is happening to this country and who in the hell are these decisions being made for, and who is making these decisions.
Well,
who made the decisions during Carter's era? Who made the decision during Reagan's era? Who made decisions during Nixon's era? Who made decisions during Ford's era? Who made decisions during George W. Bush's era? There you go. It's got to do with those that's in control of the purse. This is how they see things. Now, to one extent, if we was dealing with normalcy, pertaining to things being normal here in America, I would agree with that color man. I don't know what his name is. I ain't never seen him before, but he had some pretty good logic pertaining to the president has to be accountable to the people. This is a democracy. This is not a hypocrisy. This is not a communist-controlled country. You are basically accountable to the people that has put you in that power. Okay? At the same time, you must realize that something obviously has happened with all these other wars, including Vietnam, including the Afghanistan war, including the Korean War, and all the other little hiccups that we've had along the way, and us being almost $40 trillion in debt. Obviously, we're not dealing with normal circumstances, especially whenever the Pentagon with the White House makes a decision and then it gets trampled upon before it ever even gets announced by the president. Pertaining to leakers. There's too many leakers. You can't trust nobody in none of those departments right now. You can't trust the media. You can't trust the Pentagon, and you can't trust Ling, Virginia to some degree. Because it's all been a he said, she said scenario, and we're going to do this, this, and this, and that's what happened, and etc. Let's listen to some more of this.
We are now in this kind of idea that we can have a Waymo warfare, that we can do it remotely, so autonomously. We're not involved. Not a lot of people are going to get killed, and we're going to get in and get out. But the Iranians have a strategy here. They cannot match the American and the Israeli war machine. No way. But what they can do is try to expand the scope of the pain. They can spread the war out to a larger battlefield. More countries get involved. Close the Straits of Hormuz or hamper it to such a degree. Increase inflation around the world. Increase the pain. And I think that American voters, regardless of who they voted for, no one wants to go to the tank, to the gas station, and have to put $4 gas in the tank. No one wants their grocery prices to go up. That pain, if Iran can hold out, whether or not they have the capacity to hold out is a different thing.
Yeah.
But if they
Sounds like
hold
you're
out,
arguing,
it's
you're
real.
arguing for it to go harder and faster.
Very quick last
I'm
word.
not arguing for that at all.
I think the practical political effect this is going to have, it is going to further energize Democratic voters who are we're already seeing enthusiasm outstripping Republican voters in early vote in Texas today, by the way. And I think it's going to further depress Republican voters who feel like Trump is walking.
Look, things wasn't handled properly on the front end during the Reagan era. I've said this again and again and again towards so many different videos. Ain't no need of me repeating it because everybody knows what I'm talking about. The fact of the matter is, because things wasn't handled right, now it has put the American people in between a hard place and a rock. Once more, you got to weigh out the risk in a damned if you do and damned if you don't type scenario. And then, basically, you choose between the lesser of the two evils.
No.
Then you choose between the lesser of the two evils. And sometimes, in the eyes of the average person, that's not going to look adequate. That's not going to look necessary. That's not going to look deemable or credible, or we'll use the word that's been floating around here for the past couple of days. It's not going to look like a righteous, just cause to some degree. But how come the majority of the people, especially in these colleges all over the world, sided with Hamas versus siding with Jerusalem, Israel, even though it was Israel that got attacked by Hamas? It just goes to show you how upside down that people are whenever they were siding with the enemy. Who's done this? The devil's done this. The devil has went in and brainwashed people. All we're trying to do is make things right and give everybody the same opportunity as we've had towards a free, fair, open election to be able to vote in and out to people that you like or you dislike, and basically have freedom of speech, and basically not be confined as you would be if you was underneath a dictator. It's all in the image of peace, prosperity, love, security, safety. I could go on and on with words. I know what I'm referencing to is correct, because the devil is the one that always stirs up something, and that's the main reason why the Father one day is going to take that troublemaker called Lucifer, and he's going to give the people one more last chance to follow after him and to cause this destruction all over again, or give the people one more chance to say, you know what, we've had enough of this. We're not going to be tricked into this. We're not going to be sucked into this no more. And after that, it'll be over with, because it will be a just, fair call, and the Father redeeming his people, and his people redeeming the Father, pertaining to a just, worthy, righteous cause. Just like Dick Cheney, that used the analogy, the reason why that we went to war with the Iraqi people, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, was to basically to attack or eradicate the axis of evil pertaining to what was going on with Saddam Hussein towards the way that he was being destructive to his own people, and to try to bring stability to that region. They went in under the pretense of a just, worthy, righteous cause. It just so happens they didn't complete it. Just like with Afghanistan. They had a just, righteous, worthy cause. But because it wasn't handled right on the front end, and it being a spiritual movement versus a political movement, it backfired on them again. And it will continue to backfire on whichever president is the president. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, I don't care if you put both of them in power at the same time. If you're trying to do this politically towards reforming the earth, reforming the world, or the people in the earth, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it with strong arms and strong arms alone. Now, granted, it does take sometimes strong arms, because the only way to defeat a bad person with a gun is basically a good person with a gun. But that good person with a gun has to be knowledgeable of what's going on in the form of fairness, because he knows eventually he's going to be attacked again. They're going to try to trick you again. They're going to try to suck you in again. So you got to be very, very conscious-minded in what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you're doing it for the right causes, I promise you, it will be rewarding to all of us in the end. In the end, it will be rewarding to all of us, because we'll hear the Father say, well done, thy good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Come, enter into the joy of the Lord. I will make thee ruler over many. That's what we're striving toward. We're striving towards love. We're striving towards peace. We're striving towards acceptances. We're striving towards safety. We're striving towards fairness. And sometimes good people has to do bad things. I hate to say it, but sometimes they do. I've learned in my lifespan, especially at the age of 14, having to make a family decision of pulling the plug on my second oldest brother that I love so dearly. Everybody around here called him Otis. His name is Douglas Keith Jackson. I realized that was a bad thing that I had to do. But you know what? I had to grow up to that and realize, and you know, what if that was me? I wouldn't have wanted to been laying there like a vegetable all of my life. The quality of my life would have been already over with if I'd have been in the same predicament as him, regarding every brain cell in his head was basically dead. And the only thing keeping him alive was a machine. I wouldn't want to live that way, and I know that he wouldn't have wanted to live that way, and that's the reason why to this day I still have a free, open consciousness about making a family decision that was basically about, I guess, probably about 10, 11, 12 of us, maybe 15 of us, made the same decision, especially after we made him do a EEG the last time, and it still showed up 0, 0, not a living brain cell was in his head after the third testing. That was the fourth testing that they had done to validate whether or not they made a mistake or not, and every time it showed up 0, 0. Well, if that's the only thing keeping me alive is a machine, cut the machine. Cut the machine. Just like whenever I say what I say, that second airplane never should have hit that second tower during 9/11. They should have blown it out of the sky even if I was the one in it. I mean that. Why? Because the masses is always greater than the singles. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And if you're not looking at that thing, if you're not looking at these things that way, from a not just a military perspective, but from a leader perspective, once more, it don't matter if you're a leader of a ball team, it don't matter if you're a leader in a football team, it don't matter if you're a leader in an army. If you're not looking at things that way, and if you really listen to what George W. Bush used to always say, he used to always never say I. It was never, I want to do this. I want to do that. It was we. We need to do this. We need to do that. And that was so persuasive in the things that he was doing after that he had convinced basically the whole world that Saddam Hussein had bombs of mass destruction that we found out now that he never did have. Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about here. You got to identify the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And if you are a leader in a leader type position, you have to balance this out the way that I'm talking about. And if you don't, you're going to be scathed every time. You're going to come out on the wrong end of the deal every time, because now you're putting I before we. It's we the people, not I the people. It's not they the people. It's we the people. Just like making the decision in going to war with Satan, the one that was already given a delegated position in being the bad guy before the false prophet and before the Antichrist person comes onto the scene, that obviously the church world around here never did grasp. Never did grasp. Whenever God delegates certain people to do certain things, you can count on it. He means what he says. And God can be just as persuasive on the left as he does the right. Talk about playing the devil's advocate. I'm pretty sure that the Father can be right there ahead of the game towards saying, sick 'em, indicating that now my people has walked away, that no longer deserves the blessings that I was originally giving them, and because of it, I'm going to quit blessing them, and now the devil's going to come down in great wrath, just like it's already done been predicted for him to do, and he's going to torment people's lives. He's going to bring misery and sorrow to the world, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. And if we're not seeing that on an individual level, if we're not seeing that in a community level pertaining to our schools and our school children getting shot up, if we're not seeing that on a state level, we're seeing it now on a national and even a continent level. We're seeing it on continent levels towards the people being brutalized. Because of what? Not the Father. Because of what we're doing and not pleasing the Father. Now it opens up a porthole for the devil to come in and basically abuse us, take advantage of us, hurt us, bring pain and agony and harm to our lives. Jesus, can't you see that? My God. Good luck to all of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our endeavors as which way we go from this moment on. I can't say it enough, because we truly, truly need the blessings of God in going forth in a just, righteous cause. Because I felt like that what the Father had called me to do, knowing that the devil and anything surrounds the devil, anything that surrounds wickedness, evil, anything that surrounds the things of bad, the things of darkness, the American people has always been up against. But to see where all these devil worshippers, all these occultists pertaining to the Wiccans and all these other people that has come into play, that's now just right down the road from us. I can literally pick up a rock and almost go and hit one or two of them. We have let this come upon to us. Or let me say this, certain people has let this come up onto us. And if we're not smart enough to identify our mistakes, do you really think there's any room for clarity or to correct our mistakes? If we don't even understand our mistakes, it's kind of like an alcoholic. You know, you can preach to an alcoholic all day long. Hey, buddy, you need to quit drinking, need to quit drinking. Well, if that person hadn't convinced themselves that I got a drinking problem or that I'm an alcoholic, odds are you're not going to stop them from drinking. You have to first acknowledge that you are in trouble. You need help. You've made the wrong decisions. Beyond that, if you truly want to help, there's people out there that can help you, that can help lead you out of that dark shadow that you've fallen off into, pretending alcoholism. It's the same way with drugs. It's the same way with anything else out there that'll suck you down and keep you wallowed down in misery. You got to be strong enough and you got to be true enough to yourself to say, you know what? I really have made a mistake here. I really have got a weakness here. I really need to brush up. And that's the whole reason why that Christ said to get the beam out of your own eye before you worry about getting the moth out of somebody else's eye. That's the reason why you've heard the old saying, well, sweep your own porch out before you worry about sweeping mine. That's right. Absolutely right. Missionary work begins at home. It begins with us. It begins with you and I. And if we don't got our house clean, we really don't have no right in telling anybody else about their house being dirty. That's what Jesus said. I think that what the Trump administration done was a righteous cause pertaining to that already went over there, that already agitated the bear. They know that the bear was coming back. The bear was coming back, and this time the bear wasn't just coming back to play. He was coming back for vengeance. Kind of like cancer. How many times have you seen cancer supposedly get whipped? And then whenever it comes back the second time, usually it comes back in vengeance. And usually that's the time whenever it takes such a toehold on people's health. That second go around whenever it comes back. You know why? Because you didn't fully whip it the first time. Even though you went through chemotherapy and you went through all this and that, and your hair fell out and everything else. If you didn't whip it the first time, odds are you probably ain't going to whip it the second time. That was the logic that I should have used whenever I married my wife the second time. If the marriage didn't make it on the first get up, odds are, Dennis, it wasn't going to make it on the second get up. But you know what? Like a hard head, sometimes we all got to make our own mistakes. Sometimes God's got to take the book and throw it at us and knock us plumb down before we're going to start looking at things in a sensible, logical way. Once more, God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our military. God bless the presidency, presidential cabinet and cabinet members pertaining to the president's family and the president right now that's in power for the betterment, I believe, for the masses, for the good. And if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be sitting here saying that. God bless. Shalom.